Hi friends, welcome to Cracku's video series. I'm Sayali Ma'am. I'm one of the founders of Cracku and an alumna of IIM Ahmedabad. In this particular video, I'll be basically giving you an overview of the CAT exam. If you're preparing for CAT 2023, what to expect, how to go about preparing, and what you should be keeping in mind. Remember, a lot of students prepare for CAT every year and many prepare for 2 or 3 years. But essentially, they keep making the same mistake over and over again, or they basically don't know how to go about it, what pitfalls to avoid, what traps to avoid, what would be the most efficient way to go about preparing for CAT. So my video, in this particular video, I'll be explaining what you should keep in mind, what shortcuts you should try avoid doing, what kind of traps you should not fall into, all of those things that you should remember while preparing for CAT. So with that, let us begin. First things first, remember that you can look at CAT as a test of specific questions. You can say that, okay, in CAT, these are the question types, question 1, question 2, question 3. These are the specific type of questions that come often. And we also train you to answer specific type of questions. So we'll tell you how to answer, like for example, in reading comprehension, I'll tell you how to answer author agree, author disagree kind of questions, or questions asking the tone of the RC, or questions about like what could be a title, what any kind of specific questions. I'll tell you how to answer. I'll teach you how to answer that. But that is one way of looking at it. And this kind of way is basically what you should adopt when you have limited amount of time. Then it isn't enough time to actually focus on skill development. If you look at it as individual questions, what you're trying to maximize is the number of questions that you can possibly get right when you have 1 month to go to CAT or 2 months to go to CAT. This is the approach you should take when you have less time. But if you have more time, you should take a different path. Here, instead of looking at individual questions, you should look at what skills are needed. So here, basically, you should focus on what are the skills that I should develop that overall, not just for particular questions, but for all questions from DD comprehensions and para jumbles, what are the skills that I should develop so that I do well in all of those questions? Not specific questions, but in general, in any question of that particular type, I should be able to do well. So when you have more time, this is the technique that you should basically focus on. Building skills. So you have to build comprehension skills, you have to build quantitative skills, you have to build logical reasoning skills, you have to build data interpretation skills, you have to build also skills to like stay focused for increasingly large amounts of time. So with that in mind, let us actually take a look at the exam. Once you have an idea of the exam, you'll also understand why I am stressing what I am stressing, why the skills, what skills are needed where as such. So remember, for the last few years, we have had a shortened version of the CAT exam. Earlier, CAT exam used to be a 3-hour exam, 1 hour for each section. There are 3 sections. There is the quant section, quantitative aptitude section. Then you have the, this would be the 3rd section. I will go in order so that you know exactly in what order the sections come. The first section that will be the VA and RC section, that is verbal ability and reading comprehension section. The second section that you get is LR and DI section, that is logical reasoning and data interpretation section. And finally, you get the quantitative ability section. So quantitative ability section would be your basically math section. See, generally you would have, in last years, you would have 1 hour for each and you would have a lot of questions in each of those sections. And given 1 hour, you would be expected to have a lot of time and you would be expected to get a lot of questions right to get to a high score. Now, post-pandemic, they have kind of reduced the number of hours, partly because they wanted to increase the number of slots in which the CAT is taken. Now, they might revert to the older format, 3-hour format in CAT 2023. Or they might stick to the current 2-hour format. If it is a 2-hour exam, there will be 3 slots. If it's a 3-hour exam, there will be 2 slots. So currently you have morning, afternoon and evening slot. After that, if it is a 2-slot exam, 3-hour exam, there will be a forenoon slot and an afternoon slot. Irrespective of how long the exam is, basically you have to remember that even if it is 2 hours, it becomes an intense 2 hours. It's not a 2 hours period where you have even a moment to breathe as such. It is extremely fast paced. When you have only 40 minutes to do well in a section, you can't even take 1 minute off to like calm yourself. When you had 1 hour actually per section, there was a lot less pressure, lot less intensity, and you had some time to actually rest and recover. So if your LRDI section, for example, didn't go so well, you had time to actually recover from that and then refocus on the quant section. you have no such time in the 2-hour format. With just 40 minutes to go, you have to be very quick in starting the section and refocusing on the next section as such. So irrespective of whether it is 2 hours or 3 hours, remember it will be extremely stressful. It would be a test of your nerves and your test of your ability to control your emotions and your nerves as such. So that is definitely something that you have to keep in mind before you actually start preparing for your exams, that you have to build nerves, you have to build control over nerves over a period of time. One of the ways to think about this is that whether it is 3 hours exam, whether it is 2 hours exam, if it's a 3 hours exam, it's kind of like an ODI. An ODI is longer, but you also have time to think and you have rest periods in between. A 2-hour exam is more like a T20, though the format is shortened, you will have, you can't waste a single ball time. So again, whether it is 2 hours or 3 hours, you have to essentially learn to conquer your nerves. And the best way to conquer your nerves is to have repeated exposure to that feeling. So what I would suggest is, beginning from the very first mock that you take, try to recreate the nervousness that you feel, the nerves that you feel for an actual exam as much as possible. So this is something that a lot of us have done. Whenever we have prepared for any important exam in our life, what we used to do is we used to take mocks, and before a mock we used to actually try to think mentally that this is the exam, this is the real exam, I should focus completely on it. And the more you put your body through that motion of being nervous, of being that adrenaline pumping kind of thing, the more normal it will actually seem on exam day. So one thing that you have to remember, firstly, the exam format, it is a grueling exam, 2 hours or 3 hours, it is going to be an intense exam, and you have to prepare yourself mentally and physically to face to the challenge as such. Try to recreate it as much as possible, and so that if you get ready before the exam, it will become much easier to actually do well on the exam day. One thing that I would suggest right off from now itself is that try to take the previous year's CAT papers in the mock format. That would be the best way for you to judge whether or not you are cut out for the exam and to give you a good idea of the nerves that are involved. So basically try to think that, okay, you are actually giving CAT 2021, you are sitting in the exam hall, you have 2 hours to crack it, and at the end of the test, you are going to take a look at your score, and then you are going to judge how much work is needed, how far along in your process or your journey are you. So essentially, if you start thinking that way, your body will also start reacting and will start getting nerves and all, and then you will get a better idea of what is actually going to happen in November 2023. So I say this quite often, and this is some of the most often repeated mistake many students do. Many students do not take any CAT mock exam till September. That is the biggest mistake most of my students do. It is even though I say time and again that start taking mocks, start solving previous year's papers, the biggest mistake many students do is that they do not take the mock exam or any mock test as such or previous year's papers till September. Please do not make that mistake. It is extremely important that you have a good hold on the paper from the very start as such. You should know exactly what is asked in each section. You should know exactly the difficulty level that is involved, and you should know yourself. You should not, it's not as if you should decide, okay, this exam is not for me, or this exam is too difficult. The mock score is not there to define or tell you whether or not you should attempt the exam. The mock score is there for you to know how much work is left. So if you start thinking that, okay, there is a lot of work left, if you know from the very beginning, you have a handle on how much work is left, you will actually finish it by November 2023. If people never realize how much work is left, even if you have 1 year, you will not actually finish the work. So always remember, from the very beginning, start taking mocks, start taking previous year's papers. Our mocks will begin around April, so you will not have access to the mocks, some of the mocks that are going to be there for 2023. But nonetheless, what I would suggest is, please start taking previous year's papers. There are a lot of previous year's papers that you can take in the mock format. You should start taking at least a couple of them at the very start of your preparation so that you get a sense of the exam. That is also very important. Now let's take a look at what are the skills being tested. Remember, I mentioned that if you have a lot of time, you should focus on building skills. So here I'll tell you what are the skills being tested and why they are being tested. So for example, if I wanted to select who would be a good manager or what would make a good manager, I'd consider what a manager needs to do. So for example, a manager needs to be able to understand information and take good decisions based on that information. So how would that information come to him? It would come in the form of reports. So a manager should be able to read reports, understand the implications of the facts contained in the reports, and make conclusions and decisions based on them. So basically, if it is verbal information, he has to have good comprehension skills. So the first skills that are tested in CAT exam are comprehension skills. The entire VARC section is a test of your comprehension skills. You might consider that only RC is a test of your comprehension skills. No, the VA questions are also a test of your comprehension skills. A lot of people think that the VARC section is a test of your vocabulary. A lot of students start reading like word power and Wren and Martin grammar, etc. There is absolutely no reason to do any of that. It is not a test of your vocabulary. It is not a test of your grammar skills. If you are from a vernacular medium, it does not mean that you would be weak in this section. It actually has zero bearing as to the medium of instruction. English is just a language. It is not a test of how smart you are. Comprehension skills test how smart you are. They do not test the English language as such. So you should not focus on the fact that I came from a vernacular medium or I came from a school where English was not primarily spoken. It doesn't matter. The VARC section does not care how fluent you are in English or what your accent is. It does not matter. So if this fear is there at the back of your mind, dispel it. It only matters how quickly you understand information. If you're able to understand information in Hindi, in Marathi, in any other language, you have good comprehension skills. So you have to basically learn how to comprehend information in English. That is it. This section is a test of your comprehension skills. So what do I mean by comprehension skills? This is something basically where if you read a paragraph, if you say that, okay, this fact is given, this fact is given, this fact is given, and either a conclusion is reached or a conclusion is implied, it basically tests whether you are able to follow or understand verbal information. It's a test of your ability to comprehend verbal information. Think of it from a manager's perspective. If a manager gets the report, for example, saying that, okay, 800 units of something were produced in this particular factory, 20 were found defective, 100 were misplaced. So a manager should immediately comprehend that something is seriously wrong in this factory if 100 out of 800 units are being misplaced. So again over here, there isn't this understanding, okay, 100 out of 800 is a significant amount. This isn't about language. It isn't about grammar. It isn't about fluency in any language as such. It is simple sense, understanding, comprehension, what is important, what is being implied. So remember, your VARC section is not a test of your English language. It is not a test of vocabulary. It is not a test of grammar. It is a test of your comprehension skills. RCs basically give you paragraphs, passages, and you have to basically understand the meaning of each paragraph, put it together and get the overall meaning of that passage, and then tackle each of the individual questions. Here, the only place where you would actually kind of struggle if you are not able to understand certain phrases or terms in English language is if a phrase is given and you are required to understand that phrase to make sense of the paragraph. But even here, what I have generally found is, if you don't understand a sentence, skip it. If you don't understand a phrase, skip it. The meaning of the paragraph will not change from one single sentence. Generally, when you write, if you read any kind of article also, whenever you are writing an article, whenever you are writing an entire paragraph, you tend to repeat yourself. You tend to give an idea, expand on it, give a detailed explanation of it, and then conclude about it. So even in that entire paragraph, if you delete a particular line or a particular phrase, the meaning of that paragraph is not going to change. So do not forget, do not get this that, okay, there are many parts of this English passage that I don't understand. It doesn't matter. Just understand the paragraph at a paragraph level. If you're able to understand at a paragraph level, you are fine. There's the first thing. Now, how do you actually build comprehension skills? When generally students ask me, can I crack CAT in 2 months? I give a different way of going about it. I tell them not to read indiscriminately, but to read reading comprehension practice sets, to focus exclusively almost on practice sets and read a few essays here and there, but focus almost exclusively on solving questions in the question format. The reason for that is the most time efficient way of doing it. But if you have a year to actually prepare for CAT, there is a better way to actually build your comprehension skills. That is through reading in a general sense, reading for the pleasure of reading, reading for understanding. If you start reading for understanding, your ability to answer questions will improve considerably. See, in a day you can do one RC set properly, maybe two RC sets properly, but and that I mean on a daily basis from here till CAT. But you can't do 3 or 4 RC sets on a daily basis from here to CAT, which basically means that that puts a restriction on how much reading you can do if you just focus on reading comprehension sets. But on the other hand, if I ask you to actually develop a reading habit, read articles, read essays, read journalistic magazines, there are many sources of good essays, of good like literature all around us. I'll try to put some links in the description box also. But remember, because you have time, you should actually focus on building comprehension skills over the entire year so that you develop a liking for reading. You develop an interest in reading, and that interest in reading will actually help you much more than just simply solving reading comprehension sets. Also remember, you should like read from a diverse set of sources, not just politics, not just like arts or some topics that you are interested in, but you should try to read from different topics. So you should read some from scientific magazines or scientific scientific essays or anything of that type. So there will be like National Geographic magazine, the Scientific American magazine. There are a lot of online scientific journals that you can read from. Try to understand as such. Reading scientific RCs is extremely important because it is one of the most often asked type of RC. Then you can also read from politics. Generally, people read from politics by default because that is something that is all around us and everybody is influenced by it to a certain extent. So I would suggest do read it because a lot of people are interested in it. Often understanding persuasive RCs or understanding opinions is better through these kind of RCs. But don't make it that you exclusively read that kind of content. Also read about arts, music, drawing, literature, anything of that sort. Read about history. So you will find a lot of sources once you start going about online searching. You will find different sources for it. There are Aeon essays. For arts, you will find different places where a lot of content is available online in the form of essays, in the form of articles about each of these topics. But what often happens is that you start searching for topics you are already interested in. So some people will only search for politics, some people will only search for history. But try to make a broad and diverse array of sources so that you read from different places. Also read like a little bit of philosophy as well. I will tell you a good source of philosophy, which is Project Gutenberg. It is almost completely, it is completely free to use, and it has a lot of philosophical text as such. So you have a lot of text that you can read. For example, for economics, you can read Keynes from there. You can read John Stuart Mill. You can read. There are difficult philosophers to read also like Kant and Nietzsche, but forget the difficult to read. Read Stuart Mill, John Stuart Mill. Read Keynes for economic as well as labor union kind of view. So read from different sources on different topics, and once you get to develop a liking for reading, you will also at the same time develop comprehension skills. So focus on developing those kind of skills over the long term. You can then refocus nearer to the actual exam date on the RC sets. But now that you are starting more than a year in advance, try to develop a reading habit as such. Second thing that you have to focus on is on logical reasoning skills. So logical reasoning skills are often, what again I say whenever you have lesser time is basically solve LR sets and DI sets of different type. But whenever you have to actually have the ability to think of from a longer term perspective, think of the different types of LR sets that are there, different types of puzzles that are there. I would suggest that go to like Amazon or find good books for puzzles as such. These might not be up to CAT level, these might be simple puzzles, but often even solving simple puzzles improves your logical reasoning skills. I often feel that simple arrangement puzzles often help me understand information, how to categorize information. Most of logical reasoning skills and data interpretation skills are about categorization and representation of information. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So even if you're solving simpler puzzles, very simple basic puzzles that often are given to even kids, it indirectly helps you grow in your logical reasoning capacity, and that will also help you indirectly in getting better in the LRDI section of CAT. Again, when you have just 2 months, you have to focus almost entirely on LRDI sets and solving LRDI sets. Similarly, with comprehension skills also, you have to focus almost exclusively on solving RC sections and questions from VA section as such. So also when you have the time, try to think from a long-term perspective that if I have to sustain my preparation for over a year, I should think of it as something that is fun to do. So reading is fun to do. Reading from different sources is fun to do. Doing those simpler puzzles is also fun to do. So also add those to your repertoire as such. Quantitative skills, again quantitative skills, remember that a lot of students basically think that if you're good at maths, you're good at maths. If you're not good at maths, there's nothing much you can do about it. But that is not true, because this isn't very high level maths as such. This is 10th standard maths. And given the fact this is 10th standard maths, there are real limits on how difficult questions you can actually ask in CAT. So basically, given that, okay, there are only these many questions that you can possibly ask, because I also know, because I have to make questions, I know that I can ask the same questions only in like 4 or 5 different ways. And after that, I've exhausted the number of ways I can actually ask a question on the topic. So basically, you have to remember that if you keep solving questions, eventually you will have solved all the different ways a particular question can be asked from a topic. For example, if you consider like simple interest and compound interest. If you consider simple interest and compound interest, I can think of max 20 different questions or 20 different ways of framing questions on simple interest and compound interest. Which means by the time you have done 40 questions from that particular topic, you pretty much know almost all questions from that topic pretty well. And by 60 questions, you will be able to solve any question from that topic. Which basically means that quantitative skills is just a test of your patience and your like perseverance. If you persevere and you solve a lot of questions, irrespective of where you start from, by the 60th question from a particular topic, you will have a good idea of all questions from that topic. So persevere. A lot of students start off, they get demotivated at 10 question mark and 15th question marks. Just think of it that there are 20 different type of questions from this small topic. By the 20th question, I would have solved most of the questions of this particular type. By the 40th question, I would have solved each question of this particular type twice. By the 60th question, I would have real handle on this particular topic. Once you have that kind of mental makeup, you will not think of this as maths that I can't do or maths is too difficult. You will basically think that, okay, this is a question I had not seen before. This is a new type of question. I should just remember how to solve this type of question so that when it comes again, and it will come again because there are only X number of types of questions that can come from this topic, I will know how to solve it. So just persevere in quantitative quant section. Quantitative skills are a test of your perseverance. So if you persevere, you are definitely going to crack that section also. And the last skill or last ability that is needed is speed and mental stamina. Remember, like 2020, you have to actually sweat it out in those 2 hours. You will have a lot of adrenaline, you will have a lot of fatigue also building up over the period of 2 hours. So people start off well. The first section, VARC section, goes off fairly well. By the LRDI section, they get tired. They start getting tired out from the continuous reading from the screen, the focusing on the screen. It gets to you after some time. So by the 80th minute, when the LRDI section is actually done, a lot of students are completely tired. They have not spent they do not have the ability to sit for the entire 2 hours and focus for those entire 2 hours. So you have to also internalize the fact that you have to from now till November 2023, you have to slowly build up your mental stamina. So think of it that I sit for 15 minutes. At the start of my preparation journey, I should be completely focused for 15 minutes. I slowly make it from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. After that to 45 minutes. After that to 1 hour. So I should be super focused for 1 hour at a time. Similarly, if you keep on increasing, by the time like say April or May comes around, you would be able to comfortably sit for 2 hours and solve a paper. If you are able to do that, if you have slowly built up your mental strength over a period of time, your stamina over a period of time, you will find the mocks to be fairly easy to do. If you have not spent increasing amounts of time solving, you will find the mocks difficult to do. You will know how to solve questions. After the exam, you will know, I could have solved this. But actual mock you will not be able to solve because you won't have the mental stamina to actually face that kind of intense pressure. So focus also on slowly increasing the time for which you can actually stay focused. Start with 15 minutes, then go up to 30 minutes, then go up to 45 minutes. You can do it like a month at a time. First month, you will just solve questions for 15 minutes at a time. Next month, you will solve questions for 30 minutes at a time. then at 45 minutes, then at 1 hour. So slowly by April, you will be able to sit for the entire 2 hours. That will make a huge difference to your test taking ability. So these are the 4 skills you should focus on from now on till November 2023. One more thing, I'll tell you how to use this course, and a lot of confusion is there. What should I do first? What is important? Remember, the first thing that you should always do are your daily tasks. The daily tasks are basically a set of tasks that you have to complete on a daily basis. You'll be given this, watch this video, take this concept test. Watch this video, take this concept test. Now, because you are starting on fairly early on, the schedule will be very light. You will have only one-off video to watch. You won't have like 3-4 videos to watch. Now, what happens is people start off with a lot of enthusiasm, and after that, they miss one day over here, miss one day over there, and then a backlog starts to pile up. Then suddenly they realize after like a month or 2 months in that, okay, they have like 4-5 videos that are in backlog, or 10-15 videos in backlog. Then a lot of students try to then say that, okay, can you shift me to the latest batch? I want to clear the backlog. I don't want a backlog as such. So that they kind of keep deferring the backlog as such, but that will not help you. What you should remember is that if you are systematic and if you stick to the schedule, you won't have to worry about completing the course or completing the portion as such. The portion completion would be one less of your worries. So basically make sure that you do each of the daily tasks on the day it is assigned. At max, if one particular day is not possible for you, either due to examinations or workload or whatever, just focus on completing it in the weekend. Do not carry your task from one week over to the next, because that is how you basically end up with a lot of backlog. So try to finish the daily task at least in the week in which it is assigned. The second thing, this is basically for conceptual learning. The second part is practice. Now, where do you get practice from? So you can get a very good source of practice is daily target. Here you get the test as well as a video solution. So basically it is practice along with learning. So this should be a second stop. The third stop is study room. So study room, here you can do targeted practice. Basically, if I want to do, I want to solve one RC set every single day, then I can go to the study room and I can take an RC test every single day. So this should be your order. Firstly, you should finish your daily task. Second, you should do the daily target. And third, if you have time after all of that, go to study room and keep on solving questions from the study room. This is also where you can actually focus on building up your stamina. If you take one test in study room, that is generally 15 minutes. So if you sit and do 2 tests, it is 30 minutes. If you do 3 tests, it is 45 minutes. So when you are trying to build up your stamina, just see how many tests from the study room you can do back to back. That would also be a good way of building up your mental stamina over time. Now let us take a look at what to do beyond the course. I mentioned reading from diverse sources of diverse reading sources. So make sure that you read one article every single day. What we try to do at Cracku is we give you one daily reading article every single day. It is there on your batch feed page. So if you go to your batch page, right, there is a lot of discussion going on your batch page. Many people asking like doubts or like questions as such. But there will also be a instructor who every single day will post one article for you to read. So if you want to find different reading articles or suggested reading articles, go every single day, go to the batch feed page and open the article so that you get a daily article to read as such. Second thing that you should do beyond the course is basically keep trying to see easier puzzles. Basically keep yourself mentally active. These are puzzles not necessarily which are off cat level. What I'm suggesting is easy puzzles just to keep yourself mentally agile as such. So easy puzzles that are often given in like books for kids also, they often help you quite a bit to stay mentally active as such. And lastly, this is not beyond the course but part of the course itself, which is the study room. Keep practicing and going through the study room again and again. I'll tell you one thing that impressed me quite a bit in one of the students. One of our students was weak in Quant, and she basically decided, you know what, I'm weak in Quant, I have to address this issue. So she basically decided to solve the entire Quant study room. And at that point of time also our Quant study room had thousands of questions. If I'm not mistaken, it had like 4,000 or 5,000 questions. And I thought this is impossible. You can't really solve 4,000 questions. but she actually did it. She solved almost the entire study room, and we used to know that she used to actually solve them because she used to ask a lot of doubts on the course. So in everything in Cracku, we have integrated our doubt solving in every single aspect of Cracku. So below the video concept, if you see a concept video, you don't understand a part of the concept video, below it you can ask a doubt. If you solve a question, you don't understand the explanation, below that you can ask a doubt. Any part of Cracku, any test, any mock, you can ask a question directly below, a doubt directly below it. Now, in this, she started solving a lot of questions from the study room, and every time she would encounter an explanation she didn't understand, she would ask a doubt. We solved like, I think, hundreds of her doubts, hundreds. And we used to think that how does she get this amount of energy to chase every single doubt down, every single question down, to actually understand every single question. And she actually completely cracked that. She started off from like 40 percentile or lower in Quant, and she ended up more than 95 percentile in Quant. And that is what impressed me. Remember, Quant and every single section is in CAT is a test of your perseverance. It is not a test of your intelligence. So use this course to its absolute limits. Ask us doubts, solve every single question that is there in the study room, and we'd be more than happy to help you there. That is what we are there for, to help you with every single concept, every single question, every single step of the way. So I'm very glad you guys have started with the CAT 2023 course with your preparation, and I'm sure that those who are starting early have the biggest advantage of cracking it. Now stay the course, keep working hard, and I'm sure you're going to crack CAT 2023. Thank you for tuning in.